This is your Daily 5 for Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. For another of our commentary films for this week, Lando and I watched 1985's A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now, this is a movie that I know I haven't seen in at least 20 years, and it's probably actually quite a bit longer than that. It might be closer to 30 years. It might be since I was very young that I saw this, because I don't remember much about it. And Lando, who had seen it more recently, also didn't remember a lot. So I think it's been a while for both of us. But I haven't watched it in a long time, and the more I've read about this movie and sort of seen clips from it and everything, the more I've wanted to rewatch it, because there's a lot to this movie that you may not know about, especially if you haven't watched it in a while like Lando and I haven't. And this is a movie that came very quickly after the first movie. The first movie made a bunch of money. New Line jumped on it because they were in financial trouble, and they basically rushed into production a second film. A second film that does things that are very different from the first film and actually end up being very different from a lot of the movies that came after. The Nightmare on Elm Street films after this one adopt a pretty routine formula for a while. And I'm not saying it's not a good formula, but you definitely recognize that they repositioned what Freddy Krueger was. They understood the value of having a horror icon, and they kind of started doing, they started architecting everything around, okay, what creative ways can we use Freddy to murder young teenagers in most cases? And that's a perfectly fine formula, but I'm always interested when movies try to do something different. And because the first movie had basically established the foundation of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, but not yet a pattern, this is an interesting one because it stands out from all the rest. It does not have any similar tone to any of the other movies that I can really think of. It has the only male lead protagonist of any of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Freddy himself, I think, looks the most terrifying in this from anything else I've seen with the different films. There is something that's very, very different about the way that his makeup is done, the way that the eyes are using red kind of contact lenses that I don't think they ever went back to consistently. I think they may have played around with eye color, but not throughout the whole film. He just feels like a much more mature and scary character than he would be even in the next film. Even when you go back to Nightmare on Elm Street 3, you can already see them forming Freddy into a pop culture villain as opposed to a genuinely scary, terrifying kind of horror character. And in this movie, it's also much more dreamlike. There's much more of a sense of surrealism to it. It's much more about atmosphere compared to any of the other films, even the first one. It is just a very different film. And that's leaving alone all of the kind of back and forth over some of the undertones of the film, specifically whether it is meant to be a film about a closeted gay man. Now, the actor who is the lead in this, it was a closeted gay man at the time, said he played the character from that perspective. Some of the people who worked on it were members of the LGBTQ plus community and were sprinkling little things about it. Robert Englund has said that he was aware of a lot of what was in this script and was playing into that as well. So it feels very different. And of course, the fact that they never went back to a male lead. So there's so much about this movie that I think is really compelling. And it was, after it came out, even though it made money, it sort of got relegated to black sheep status. And I think that's largely because people really got on board with the fun Freddy thing that happened from 3 on. And I think a lot of people prefer that kind of jokier version of a child murderer. Keep that one in the back of your head. But I think that's the one that resonated at the time, and since that was just the kind of general feeling towards that character, and that's the one that most people really like. Plus the fact that they did get very creative with the kills and everything else, whereas this movie is more restrained in some ways, but also far more brutal in other ways, reminding me in some ways of the blood fountain from the first movie. But just looking at it in totality, I really like this movie. This may now be my favorite one, if for no other reason than that it makes Freddy Krueger, who they always refer to as Fred, which I think is important. I think it's significant that they don't say Freddy, even though the title has Freddy in it. Nobody refers to him that way. I feel like the character is the most actually frightening variation in all the films. So if you haven't watched this one in a while and you have kind of a dim memory of it, I would say go back and watch it, because you may still like some of the other ones better, but this is absolutely one of the Nightmare on Elm Street films that is worth seeing. Later.